The views expressed in the following show are of the host, the guest, and the callers. The content of the following show, its accuracy, authenticity, and the ramifications of the use or application of said content is the responsibility of those speaking and listening, not the broadcast medium.
All right, we are back, and we are live. Feet to the fire. I'm your host, James Althayanchik, the Black Knight of Talk Radio. We are live. Now, I'm getting some broadcast warnings. Okay, it's up to speed now. So, I don't know. I did some tests, and it was working. So, here we go. We are back, and we are live. Welcome. I was off last week in the hospital again. Haven't been in the hospital my entire life since I was a kid, and within the last year, I'm in the hospital twice. Besides going broke, I was really terrified this time. I mean, the other time, I don't know, maybe because I was half out of it, and it was an ambiguous kind of thing. Well, you got this infection and whatever, it was in your spine and brain. This time, I mean, I'm going to, excuse the grossness here or whatever. I'm going to the bathroom and it's just blood gushing out, man. You know, talk about screwing with your mind. I'm thinking, how much can I bleed? You know, so I ended up was there for several days before it stopped bleeding. And basically, it was a diverticula bleed, little pockets that form in the colon. And it bled inside one of the pockets into the colon, which is good, rather than internally. And I was just, they basically said, hey, if it was a polyp or if it was a hernia or some kind of bleed in the colon, they could deal with it. But since it was in this little pocket, there's nothing they can do except hope it stops or major surgery. I mean, and I say major, I shouldn't say that. I mean, it's not major like they're going to reattach my brain or something, but it was, they'd have to cut out a piece of the colon, and I'd have what do you call that, colon bag hanging out for, 2 months, 6 weeks, and then they'd reattach the colon, and then you'd have to have water diet for several weeks until that. I'm like, oh, my God, talk about this is the end of the bankruptcy, end of the show, end of the house, end of everything. And I'm looking at this stuff in the hospital, man, and I was praying my dear little mind out. I stopped bleeding, and I had a real bad night. I think the devil was poking me with, like, his spear or whatever that thing is. And I was praying, like, all night, just, please, I don't want to have the surgery. And there was a guy who was there who was in worse shape than me. I felt a little kind of guilty. He's been there. I had 1 pint of blood. I passed out a couple of times, but I had 1 pint of blood. He had 6, and it was just like it's bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. They're looking at surgery, So I end up praying for him, feeling kind of guilty that I'm all worried about myself. And then the morning comes after all that torture all night, and they come in, yeah, pretty good. You haven't bled. Your numbers are doing good. That's, blah, blah, blah. I was all happy, and and I'm like, wow. That was just, it's over, I mean, not over in death, but over in life as I know it anyway, stuff I've been doing. And then I found out that guy who was worse than me ended up stopping bleeding. So I got a little teary at that point. I was kind of thinking, God is pretty wonderful. Now, why some they pray and something doesn't happen? I don't know the answer. That's what my thing I was dealing with that night. It's like, hey, maybe this is just the deal I got to go through. So it was, I don't know. I tell you, the first time that I was in the hospital was kind of like, I don't know, kind of like kaleidoscopic or something. This was very intimately personal. I mean, when you fill up a toilet with blood again and again for day after day after day, every time, every couple hours, it's like, oh my God. And I also want to mention one thing. I did pass out. I've never passed out before. I both times as I just deposited this big gush of blood and I stood up and everything got crazy and everything, and I ended up passing out. And I got to tell you, the hospital, I was at St. Joseph's in Joliet again. I was there second time, and they were pretty good. I mean, really good people. I mean, when I passed out, they don't know why you passed out. The first time I was alone, and I was just in the toilet. I guess somebody heard something in the room because I was waiting for this one test, angiogram. They were going to try and seal up the bleeding that way. And I fell in the toilet, and I just woke up. My face was pushed into the front ground. I'm all twisted up and going, help me, And they called this code blue, which means non-responsive. There must have been 20 people. Just like, boom, there they are, all ready to help, doctors, and then, everything from a pair of hands to a skilled brain and whatever. And I tell you, kudos to those individuals because all they cared about was me, what they can do. I mean, you could see it. You could see the attention in their eyes. I've seen it before in a fireman who was fighting fires. They're focused on their job, and they're like, all they're looking for is like, what can I do? Here I am waiting for somebody who's in charge of the situation to start calling out stuff. It was quite impressive. I guess this is normal for a hospital, but I haven't seen it, so I was quite impressed by that, and I definitely appreciate. But here you go. Here you got modern medicine. They can reattach arms. They can do all this stuff, and they're basically saying, well, it's either going to stop or it's not. If it doesn't, we'll have to do the surgery. If it stops, so it stopped. Thank God, it stopped. So here I am, alive. So that's that. I tell you, I did get a pint of blood, and I have given blood several times in my past. And I do want to thank whoever donated, because obviously if I was at home during this time, I probably would have died, like of blood and stuff. So there you go. Now, let's face it, I'm done with the hospital thing here, okay? Okay, I'm done with this. Done with it. So let's move on. I do want to mention that I did a show recording. I hate using the word show because it's not like a show. Show. With Jim Jatras yesterday. We did a recording. Let me switch to this. We did a recording. Jim Jatras has been on the show several times. He's been on also various news shows. He is a foreign policy expert. We talked about Syria, the bombing of Syria, and the Russian-U.S. relations and whatever. He has a lot of experience both on the ground and in the head in these areas. Being called upon by many in think tanks, whatnot, to talk about it. So we had about an hour or so, a little over an hour talk. And I want to recommend, rather than just dump it inside this show, I uploaded it yesterday as standalone. And I'll put the links below, but they're already on the YouTube channel. So you want to check that out, get some pretty good insights, I thought. Very passionate about it. I mean, same page a lot of the time, probably all the time. So it was a good, some good insight. Instead of the political spin and all that stuff, you get very grounded. So I wanted to mention that is available on the YouTube channel, and also on Feet to the Fire Radio website. And also I did upload a audio only. So if you'd like, it's on Spreaker as well. If you go to Spreaker and look up Feet to the Fire, you'll find a show. And I put up a bunch of stuff from before too. So there's many years more on the old website. Links are on the current website, Feet to Fire Radio. Just look for the pre-2007, 18, 17 links, and you could comb through that. But I also put a bunch up, just random kind of, in the last couple of years. I have that up there on Spreaker, so you could check that out. Let's see. On that topic, I want to mention an article. I gotta switch my windows here. There you go. Putin and Trump will not allow armed confrontation with Russia and U.S., as Lavrov, the foreign minister, Russian foreign minister. Now, I really hope so, because, one thing I mentioned with Jim Jatras, and you can see the article, see that recording, is that I kind of hope that there's, Trump is playing with the deep state and trying to do this, that, and the other thing, and limit what the deep state want to do. They want to send troops in there. They want to invade and all this stuff, hoopla. And I'm just hoping somehow there's back channels to Putin where, Putin knows what it's like to deal with the apparatus coming out of the Soviet system. He knows how to deal with that. I mean, they're still there. They're still there in some of the party. Communist Party's still there. So it's my hope that there's something going on here, and without starting to sound like QAnon, I mean, I'm hoping that there's something going on that, realize that they don't take it at face value. And I wish they didn't have to do that. I mean, it's just all ridiculous, but let's see, what is this? Oh, let me go back to the Facebook feed, because I already pulled out some things I wanted to talk about, but wrong button. There we go. Let me scroll down to see some of these things. I wrote there's more so let me just go along with this. Let me look at the chat room for a minute. Boiled nuts, Brill. Cunidas? Can't see it. Cunidas. I can't see too well. I got the wrong, I got my mid glasses on, not my reading glasses. Glad to see you. Can't lose you. You're the best. Well, he's subscribed to 500 channels, so I guess there's a formed opinion there. Well, I appreciate that, Bill. But I posted this in response to another post about hate speech. Apparently, there was a bill in California that if you take the bill at its face value, you could actually ban the Bible as hate speech. And I wanted to mention that this has been dealt with before. And again, when you get older, you happen to have memory of stuff that happened a long span, right? So I was around in the 70s when the neo-Nazi group was gaining headlines. And they were called the neo-Nazis, but I mean what was the actual name of the all right, so now I'm going to totally screw this up here. There we go. It's called the National Socialist Party of America. Okay, that was the new Nazis. Neo meaning new, Nazis. Okay, so let me go back to this one. So back in the 70s, and the date, I'm lucky I got the decade. Okay, but back in the 70s, they had this group, and I happened to live near the area where they were located. It was Marquette Park, which was kind of a melting pot on the southwest side of Chicago for various groups of races or ethnicities, I guess the better word would be. And they had a little storefront there, and were recruiting people, and they got permits to speak. And I actually went to one of the presentations. I actually didn't even hear what was going on, because there was a big crowds of hooting and hollering, yelling, and everything out there, and a bunch of paddy wagons, actually extra wide, extra tall paddy wagons. I've never seen them that big. I think I think I want to get out of here, because obviously I wasn't there to be recruited, but I was there just being nosy. Well, hey, what's going on? What's all the hoopla about? So I remember this. And what had happened is the neo-Nazi group, got a permit to speak in Market Park. They also got a permit to speak to march, to have a parade, march. in Skokie, which is predominantly Jewish. I think it was like 60% Jewish, perhaps. And they filed a court, which would be the modern equivalent of hate speech. You know, that this was hate speech. They were wearing swastikas. They were, you know, doing a goose step or whatever. And it was going to bring back bad memories and from people who survived the Holocaust. They're living in Skokie and so on. And it was stayed by the lower courts in Illinois. It went to the Illinois Supreme Court. And let me get, before I get to that. So this came up, this whole hate speech thing came up. And I said, wait a minute, I remember this, right? I remember. So I looked up and found the Chicago Tribune. I found the article from the 70s that it was there. The actual article was online, and it quoted it went to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of the United States, and it went in favor of the Socialist Party, saying that freedom of speech. They have the freedom of speech to say whatever they would like to say. They can't incite violence. You can't scream there's fire in a crowded theater, but you can say, I don't like anybody. You know, I don't like black people. I don't like white people. You can say whatever you like. That's freedom of speech. And they said, just because, I don't condone what they're saying per se, but they do have a right to say it. And that freedom of speech is easy. It's not meant, the First Amendment wasn't meant for speech you agree with. It was meant for basically for speech you don't agree with. So, I mean, it was a nice summary by the justice of the majority, the writing majority opinion. Well, I went to find that, and it's not around anymore. They scrubbed it. They had a new article reminiscing about this, and they don't bother to record the speech. Plus, they give the impression, if you look at the links that I do have, and I'll have them down below, but the Supreme Court, Illinois Supreme Court, as well as the Wikipedia kind of outline of it, they talk about it being kind of a technical decision, that it was based on a technical decision. The lower court, the Illinois Supreme Court, was kind of a technical. They were saying, like, look, if you're going to take away someone's rights, you have to give a stay and you have to do all this stuff. So there was a technical thing with it. And so that's the kind of, rather than going into the greater picture of hate speech is protected by the First Amendment, you don't have to show up to listen to them. And that, that's what I was thinking back in the 70s. Is like, everybody's getting all upset about this. They're mad and everything. I say, hey, just don't want to show up. They come walking down the street. No one's there. End, right? But so this was the point. And now we're getting into this now. Now they're talking about putting a hate speech thing in California, which technically you could ban the Bible because it talks in the Bible about killing certain ethnic groups or not ethnic. Well, it's ethnic, but like tribes or whatever. Because they were evil in the sight of the Lord, and they slew them, and the manservant, and the man's, all this stuff. And so that, this is the point, but it doesn't matter. I mean, all this whole talk about hate speech already was done by the Supreme Court, already said. And so, if somebody out there, I remember asking this before, please, if someone could find this, I mean, look in the WikiLeaks. The problem with the Supreme Court decisions is they're not online. You have to go into the library, who access the Library of Congress or whatever, look up the actual court in the decision in the court paper, and then you could publish it on. You can go and then say, here was what it says, and that's what that article did. It quoted from. So this is very important right now to talk about. This is very, very important when they're banning people on YouTube and all, and Facebook and all this, given the excuse that it's hate speech. Hate speech is protected speech by the First Amendment. No one says that you have to listen to it. No one says you have to agree to it. You could speak it, and you could be standing alone or with a crowd. It doesn't matter. It's just violence cannot be promoted. Now, enter Antifa, who was out there beating up heads and blatantly inciting violence on some of the statements. I mean, you have the knucklehead actors, like De Niro and all that. Man, I'd like De Niro as an actor. Now I can't stand him. You got the knucklehead De Niro on there going, I have to punch him in the face. And that's violence. And that, it's okay. So this is the thing, and I really if you're on Facebook, you can go to this and share it. I mean, it's not that what I'm saying is some kind of earth-shattering stuff. All I'm doing is repeating and recalling what has happened. But we have to know at these times that there isn't a way to block hate speech other than to not listen to it. And if somebody is excited by the hate speech and does violence on their own, unless that hate speech says, go do violence, someone working on their own doing it, that's still not. That person is going to be arrested for violence or whatever, but it doesn't mean that speech, the speech says, go out and do violence. Oh, all right. Now we're talking a problem there. And so that's very important to remember that and keep that in there, because this is how they're going to come across. Now, they've backed off on Facebook that I've noticed. I mean, I do Facebook because of the show, basically. But they've backed off. I'm starting to see Alex Jones commercials again, and people have said, "Hey, you're back in my feed again." I didn't know I was being filtered out, but somebody said, "Hey, you're in my feed again." I guess they. So whatever happened with this committee investigation or whatever, Facebook. They, Let me, I got a problem here. I got a memory error here. It's not good. Not when I'm broadcasting. I'm doing this now. I'm going to have to add all these pages lined up. And I'm broadcasting very low. Very unhappy about that. That's going to screw up my show now. Well, I guess I pretty much got it done out to begin with. Well, still broadcast. All right. So it's very important to keep track of that. So let me go on to the next one, since I've already been distracted here. I've had a fatal distraction. Judicial Watch sues Russia collusion FISA documents. Now, I'm telling you this, Judicial Watch gets big kudos, thumbs up. These guys are suing with the Freedom of Information Act, left and right, all this stuff. They're being stonewalled by the FBI and the DOJ for information. And judges have ordered them to speed up and get the information and so on. So these guys are really looking forward. They said they want the actual the FISA documents, the real deal, not a redaction, not just nothing in it that's going to actually jeopardize national security. Okay, so these guys, really good guys, and they're standing up for this, Jatras. There was some. There's a video or a point. Nestle CEO says water is not a human right, and then there was some people said that's not the actual CEO guy, and then his eyes blackened out or something. So somebody probably did something to it. But what the point was, and I found the documents that will quote him, is that there is a problem with Nestle buying up all this water, right? And so the argument is, it's a human right to have access to water, and his argument would be that it is not a human right, meaning that you can't deny a private company from buying real estate or accessing the water. And the point being is that, as I reflected on it, if you could buy land and buy the rights to, say, getting oil, for example, and that is a private property, you can buy the rights and you can have access to the oil. If that's the case, then water it would be under that same category. It's something that you can't restrict access to based on human rights. There's no precedence, legal precedence ever that. Now, I'm not saying there shouldn't be, because I kind of, like the idea of having access to water without having to pay big dollars to get it. So there was the clarification on that. A lot of talk on the page here. One American News Network, again, like this place, story, mass shootings may be linked to psychotropic drug use. Somebody's out there saying it. Somebody's saying it. One of the not mainstream in that it's on cable, news and so on like that. It's not an internet-based news. Another thing I want to mention, the story came out, Washington State Fusion Center accidentally releases records on remote mind control. But when I looked into this, the paperwork was not actual government paperwork. And so what probably happened is that somebody deliberately or not inserted this paperwork in with the cache of Freedom of Information Act requests. And so it is being portrayed as somebody leaking out this data, but it's not actual government data. Like, it wasn't government studies or it wasn't a government-funded project, and here's the report. It's just information, excuse me, that was put together by somebody, and I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying true or false. I'm saying it's not government information that was leaked intentionally or otherwise in with this pack of information. So it'd be like if you found a Mars bar or something in the group of paperwork. Was that Mars bar put there by the government? Is that, or was it? No, this is something to look at, but it's not an actual release. Also want to mention that Trump is not a target of the Mueller investigation, but everyone around him is, and they're hoping to nailing him and getting them to turn on him, which is rather desperate but still deadly. Hopefully the congressional criminal recommendations will be acted upon, and get the real criminal investigation, and I'll get to this next. This is huge. People have been listening to me, no, I'm not a big fan of this Anon stuff, whether it be Planet X Anon or whatever. Because they say things in this coding, you have to have them, people have to have shows on decoding on Anon and what they're saying, and I don't like that. I mean, say it or don't say it. Don't come up with this stuff, and then you create a whole industry now based on this. This is something, and I apologize for the sniffling. I went out for a good ride today, but it was a little cool. So I think I had this is something I can put my hands on. The committee in Congress sent a criminal referral on Comey, Clinton, Lynch to the DOJ on the Steele dossier. Now, this was reported on SarahACarter.com, but what I also got, too, I wonder why I was going low in memory there. You know what? I'm going to close out Skype since I don't really need it anyway. I don't have a guest today, so let me get this out. I got 32 gigs of memory here, so it's pretty... all right. So I did find the actual paperwork. Wasn't real hard. It was in the article at the end. It was added to the article that Sarah A. Carter. This is the actual paperwork filed, including a photograph of the signatures who are on this. They're requesting. They sent it to Sessions, the FBI chief, Wray, and the inspector general, who was looking into these things, Mr. Huber. And they want to look into Comey and then various things. I mean, I'll put links to this. You really should. Oh, I'm sorry, you got the wrong page here. You really should sit down and read through this. It's of course, it's written in legalese. It's official, so it's not meant to be read by regular humans. But it is very good. They are asking, let me go back to the main page here. They're asking all these people, and I'll put the links to this, of course, as well. Comey and all these people who lied, McCabe, they're all looking for, let me go back to this. Sorry for all the, here we go. This is huge. This is Congress sending an official request to the Department of Justice and the FBI to have a criminal investigation into these matters. Now, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not a constitutional expert. I mean, I have a working knowledge of it, you know. I went to school back when they actually taught this stuff. That you had to graduate. You had to take a test to graduate. But I'm not sure if Congress tells FBI that they have to do it. I mean, I'm assuming in a regular world they would do it. Congress would request this. They would look into it. You know, we're in a battle here. This is a war. This is a civil war. It's a coup, or what do you want to call it? So I don't know what the deal is. The president, I know, can order it because he's in charge of the executive branch, which the DOJ and FBI are under that. So he could order it. Probably be called a dictator and whatnot. But this is huge. This is an actual, real, oh goodness, good. Write to your Congress people. Tell them you want this to looked into. I mean, this is good stuff. Very rare in all this stuff that I actually find items that are good. I'm getting a little distortion here. What's the deal? So I'm really thrilled about that, and so I put that up on there. That to me is good news that it's moving forward. All this is official now. People are talking about all this stuff going on. You can watch pundits both on the internet and like Fox and so on. You could talk about this, and Page and all these people were conspiring to make an insurance policy to stop Trump. That's all great. We're all talking about it. It means nothing. It means nothing. We're all sitting there talking about it. It's on Facebook. It's all, there's YouTube's coming out about it. Oh, boy, this is terrible stuff. You got people on Fox Business, Fox News. Until it gets in the hands of the police and they start investigating it. The same thing with rounding up all the pedophiles and all that. When the police arrest them, now we got some action, and they are. That's another thing that's going on in the background. I'll get to that. But this is something big, and I would think if people were to get in touch with their Congress people, I mean, I understand in Illinois, for example, who am I going to talk to? Dick Durbin? Oh, he's really going to get right on that. Being one of the inside senators. But I think, to me, it's like for the tally books. It's on record. I did this. Whatever it's worth, I did it. When someone says, "Hey, what'd you do about it?" Well, I talked to him. Well, big deal. Well, what did you do? Oh, excuse me again. So that's good. Now, on this other part, this was kind of encouraging. Amazon Technologies acquires patent for potential cryptocurrency marketplace. So, again, I'd like to hear, personally, as someone who was involved in cryptos, I'd like to hear, let's call it mainstream companies, looking into using cryptocurrencies somehow. In this case, it's a market. I guess they're selling them or whatever. When they get on board, that means that you're talking about acceptance. Once enough people get involved in it, the momentum will keep things going. You can have an ideological approach. This is going to bring down the bankers. It's going to bring down the IMF and all this stuff. If you're going to look at it that way, you're going to have trouble because it's like people fighting the military or something. Like, America could stand up against the military. No, it can't. Well, there's 100 million guns owners in America. There's only 40. I saw that article. Maybe it'll pop up. There are 46 million military. It includes the cooks and mechanics. There's 100 million. I go, yeah, sure. If you're going to have like a ground war, and you're going to pull all 46 million military off from all the countries and put them there, it's going to be a little noticeable when this is happening. The point is that if it came out to an out-and-out war, all you got to do is go look at Syria. I mean, these guys, the Syrian people have like M16s, So if the United States was going to start bombing its own people, it wouldn't even have to do that. All it's got to do is cut power to the major cities and watch people eat each other. I mean, so all I'm saying is don't get all in your high horse and like, okay, we got guns and we're going to protect ourselves. Yes, because of the guns, it makes it very difficult for the old Mao style. Mao Zedong, when his group went, village to village. They rounded up the people and shot them. Yes, that will prevent that type of a thing. And that's why they want to get rid of the guns, because in order for them to actually have a military, have a weaponized fight with the American people, it would be ungodly messy. So yeah, it's good to have it. Yeah, it's actually stay for that kind of thing. But if the United States government wanted to get you in your neighborhood, they could. And of course, it's wrong. They shouldn't do that. But my point is, let's not get too crazy with the we're going to defend ourselves, because it will come in handy if it comes down to something like that, especially if you have an emergency. Now you have people during the emergency trying to get guns away, and yeah. I just kind of slipped into that. How I slipped into that from cryptocurrencies. Oh, well, the idea is you don't want to have cryptocurrencies fighting the old guard, so to speak, because the old guard's got a lot of power. It's got legal power. Just make them all illegal. But you want to have the old guard adopt it to some degree, so they got some skin in the game. And if the banks and all that got some skin in the game on it, then they're not going to. It works out better. So the more big names get involved in cryptos, the better it is. It's like the internet. You want to shut down the internet. Well, so much runs on the internet. Phone system runs on the internet now. They don't even hardly use phone lines anymore. You have all the banking. All these things use the internet. So you want to shut down the internet, you shut down, it's like stopping the blood flow to the brain. Before you could have done that, but now it's been too internalized. So we want cryptos to be internalized and get all over the place and be used, and then they'll be more stable. Well, I got this article about Pompeo meeting with Pompeo. I wonder if it's a Freudian slip there. Pompeo meeting with the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un. Now, I want to mention about Trump. It's clearly Donald Trump in his actions in North Korea is somehow precipitant of this latest idea of the North and South Korea reuniting. There's more to it. There's the North and South Korea people. But it's Donald Trump comes on the scene. This guy, Kim Jong-un, starts shooting missiles off. Trump shoots his mouth off, and it gets to this head, and all of a sudden it's like, you know what? Why don't we work it out? Whatever happened behind the scenes. And it turns out Pompeo went and met with this leader over the Easter weekend. You have China getting involved in this. You had Kim Jong-un going to China and talking with him. It's obvious that Trump, the art of the deal, is at work here. And of course, the mainstream media, Trump could walk on water and they would criticize him for not being able to swim. I can't take credit for that, but I thought that was pretty apropos. And it's clearly Trump this is a Trump victory in how he's doing it. Many people are involved, but Trump was the precipitant. He was that when you have a super saturated mixture in water, like when you dissolve a lot of sugar, you want to make rock candy. You heat up the water, you dissolve all the sugar, you let the water cool, you put a string in there, and you can tap the glass, or it'll do it by itself with the string, and there's a precipitating action that'll go boom, and all of a sudden that super saturated material starts to crystallize. It's that precipitant action, and that Trump is that action, 100%, no doubt. And there should be if this all works out, they'll get together. Since Korea's been an enemy of North and South Korea for 50-some years. Well, I don't remember when it was, 56, I think it was the peace treaty. I'm not good on the dates. So there you go. Okay. And it's funny, Washington Post writes a story, South Korean president credits Trump with bringing North Korea to the table, but then the way they say it is to avoid antagonizing the U.S., to avoid U.S. president, we'll say that Trump gets credit for it because we don't want to get him all upset and everything. See, at the Washington Post, I'm telling you, I think they would think they would cut off their arm before they would actually compliment Trump. Here's interesting. I mean, these memes come up, and a lot of them are like whatever. But this is, if paying hookers and porn stars with private money warrants an FBI raid, what does members of Congress paying off harassment charges with taxpayer money warrant? I mean, I thought that was outrageous. And so a bill comes up, and they sign it like, yeah, we can still do that. Just outrageous. Now, here's something I want to talk about. Well, in Illinois, there's a big hoopla about these smart meters. We got people showing up in the chat room, right? Well, somebody said, why send the CIA director, not the CIA, Secretary of State? Well, the Secretary of State was on his way out. CIA director is on his way in. The Secretary of State, I'm guessing that would be the answer. But New Mexico actually stopped the smart meters. These smart meters, and entire shows can be done on this. I'll do one if you'd like, but there's so many people that have done them already. You can just Google it. But these smart meters have a lot of problems. I went through it a few shows ago where I went through and did a kind of a little once-over about how it's an infrastructure for basically spying on you. Plus, there's the whole idea of the health of having yet more radiation coming in your house, blah, 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 blah. Well, in New Mexico, they went to the court. I don't know if it was the head of the, well, let me just hit the page. Let me get the big window open here. Let's see. The Public Regulation Commission has denied the power company's application for smart meters. They said it did not demonstrate smart meters will produce efficient energy efficiency. They did not show customers want smart meters. They did not evaluate alternatives. They did not say how it would protect customers' data privacy. Cybersecurity issues need to be addressed. 125 good, high-paying jobs would be lost. Proposed opt-out fees were unreasonable. There were insufficient public input. There was insufficient response by P&M to public objections. Now that's government doing its job, if you ask me. Yes. Same thing here as in Illinois, except, of course, the fix is in, and every time somebody does something, the solid Democratic everything, who apparently signed on to this, wants it out. So I would want anybody who lives in Illinois, well, anybody who lives wherever you live, send this information to your people, your power companies, the Power Commission, or however you do it here. Illinois Power Commission, I think it's called here. The Commerce Commission, maybe it is. There is, of course, your legislative leaders. That this is great. This is exactly true. ComEd did not demonstrate any of this. They just want to do it, and it's outrageous. So, yay! Kudos to New Mexico. Kudos to them standing up to it. Let me go back to my page here. All right. I already went through the hospital deal. I put a little summary up there. Now, going back to Syria, One American News Network had a reporter on the ground, found no evidence of weapons attack in Syria. Again, I want to mention the video I did yesterday with Jim Jatrius. I said this at the beginning of the show. People tuned in later. We did over an hour talk. It's available on the website. It's available on YouTube. And we brought up stuff like this, that they're basically, it was basically probably the white helmet group did it. It's fake in order to, Trump comes out and says, we're going to leave Syria. It's done good. Syria's, it's great. All of a sudden, where's the article? All of a sudden, John McCain throws up in Syria, and the next thing you know, we have a attack. I wonder if that's going to pop up easily or not. I don't want to get too far out of the loop here. Yeah, here we go. Every time John McCain makes secret trips to Syria, chemical weapons attacks follow. I'll keep that link too. So John McCain goes to Syria. Next thing you know, you have a chemical weapons attack. Now you're the president of Syria. And the president of Syria says, just here's the president of the United States saying that they're going to pull out of Syria, mission accomplished or whatever. And then, so what's the first thing you do? You go out and start gassing your people, right? No, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. All right, you actually just relax because now finally someone who was bombing your country is leaving. You're kind of happy about that. You're not about to do something to antagonize them to stay more. So, to me, this is all a load of malarkey. And there's been no proof of this, as well as the other attack. Mattis has come out and said, well, we don't have actual proof of it yet. It didn't deny it had happened, but he also didn't have proof. So let me slip back while we're talking about this. This is a great, well, this is a, let me make the whole page here. Zero Hedge. I like, I wanted to get to this picture, except I like Zero Hedge, but, they got all the ads, but that's, Papa needs a pair of shoes, So you have a picture of this Syrian child lying with her deceased parents. Big emotional thing that's terrible. It's heart-wrenching, And then they show other pictures of her, like, smiling and waving to the camera and so on. Not too heartbroken. It leads the people to think that perhaps this might be staged. And there's been several other, here we go, staging events, taking pictures. Yeah. There he is laying down. I know he's saying all happy and stuff. You see, so Zero Hedge has got a bunch of stuff. Again, I'll put the links on there. So you have to remember, here's the cast. And so that's this whole thing with Syria is a bunch of malarkey, like I said, and very upsetting. I'm still, people say, well, you're giving up on Trump. Well, no, I mean, got a chance. There's not a chance in hell. There's no one else. Who else is there? Who else is there who could possibly do anything to help us? So, I'm going under the default that he's trying to do what he can based on his gun. He's got literally or figuratively, got a gun to his head. And he's got to think fast on his feet. Yeah, somebody, what the hell is it with Syria? Now, on another, if I can shift from, like, news into, like, religious philosophy, you go back through the history of the world, there's a lot of stuff happened in Syria that's pretty interesting. Assyria was the ancient group there. You have the Babylonians and the Sumerians, all in that general area there. And the gods from Sumer to Babylon to Syria and onward, Molech and Marduk, and, you've heard these names before and so on. All that comes from Syria. So it's kind of interesting that of all the places around the world we're at now, we're talking about Syria. And it makes you wonder. I mean, it's not like Syria itself has a lot of oil. I mean, they all have oil over there, but it's like, if you want to look at it strategically, there's a pipeline fight between Russia and I think it's Georgia, but the West and the East is where, what I'm saying. There's a fight going on there, and Syria is like a key roadmap. So you might look at it in terms of that way, because Syria, it goes with the West, then the Western pipelines can go through, and the West makes money. It goes to the East, which is currently friends with Russia, then the Russian pipeline comes through. You can look at it at that level. And then you can look at it at the other level of this ancient history of all this stuff going on there, demons and, all this stuff. And it makes you wonder, perhaps, what kind of energy is involved in this other than pipeline energy. So let me move on. Well, I'm going to just spend a minute on this. I wrote on here sarcastically, spring just wouldn't be the same without a predicted appearance by Planet X. This one hits the trifecta, Planet X, the Rapture, and the Antichrist. So that's tomorrow. So RT did this article, and of course they're doing it sarcastic as well, but it's based on real people saying that this is really going to happen. So, it's something about May. Yeah, I've been doing this show since 2003, and of course I've been listening to Art Bell, who, by the way, Art Bell passing away. Kind of old news now. I only do a show once a week, so it's happened during the week. But Art Bell, one of the reasons that I started my show was Art Bell retired and wasn't pleased with how Coast to Coast is going. So I figured, well, I'll do it. I'll do it. And so if you listen to my earliest shows, they are patterned after Art Bell's format, with the music, the bumpers, and, the topics and whatever. I wouldn't say, not stealing it, but inspired by it, let's say, put it that way. And so Art Bell has passed on and died. And so that puts the end to that legacy. But going back to those days, Planet X, Nancy Leader, names are going to escape me now. I've been through all of this stuff, and it somehow May is the day. May is the deal. We had a comet was going to hit the Earth in May. You had Peggy Kane was talking about how the net, that's some kind of invisible net that keeps us, was going to be ripped open, and we'd see the universe for the first time. That's in May, and of course the Planet X was in May, and something about May. So here we are, April 22nd, 23rd is now Planet X rapture. And yet you dial Planet X on the, look up Planet X, you'll see it's alive and well, a lot of people, posting pictures and so on. Opposition is spreading in California to the immigrant sanctuary. A lot of cities are signing on, going against that. That's very good. A federal judge halts the Department of Justice looking into the Trump papers. That was very good. Interesting enough, the judge involved is almost like would have ruled against them by past association. But here's a little meme I liked. Mainstream media hypocrisy. Of course, I'm not going to think of her name. Gosh. I'm so lame when it comes to this stuff. When I see your face. Paula Jones was raped by Bill Clinton. Media called her a whore. And now you have Stormy Daniels actually is a whore. Well, I don't know, porn star or whatever. And they call her a victim. Well, it's kind of interesting. Now, somebody wrote, well, there was no DNA and all that. And it's like, true. He wasn't criminally charged. It was a lawsuit, which he filed out of court. People will say, well, Trump filed out of court too. And it's like, yeah, I got it. Okay, I got all of that. But based on how her life has happened, I think it's pretty safe to see you're looking at someone who was. Okay, there's some more. I got various articles. I'll put all these links up. No, the claims of no corpses and the chemical attack and whatnot. So I think I've caught up with. I mentioned this. I see this as I put this up April 10th, so we're going back a ways. But there's another article about this teacher who saw the gunman, who was all dressed up in garb and whatnot. I'm looking at the chat room. Was busy. I should keep it. I can't chew gum and walk at the same time. I used to, but now I can't. So they talk about this gun. We're calling it a second gunman because the kid who was the gunman did not have a full-blown metal garb. He didn't have automatic weapons that was just shooting down the hallways, as this witness said. She actually got grazed by a bullet. And so it leads one to conclude as a second gunman. Now, I did a show in February 25th on this because I saw this interview and was stunned. And, of course, the Good Morning America didn't even mention the fact about all this. This kid didn't have any armor. None of that was found. So, all right, I think we're a lot of no chemical weapon stuff up here. Les Visible was hospitalized a couple weeks ago. He is back. And I have, at the end of the show, I'll play the thing he did for last week, but then I was in the hospital, so we missed that. Let me go back. I just remembered there's another thing I wanted to mention. Oh, here we go. Born before 22 weeks, the most premature baby ever born is now thriving. There's a picture of the less than 22 weeks old baby was born, and she's thriving. What's the point here? Now, CNN is just reporting on this, right? This has happened. The ramifications of this story is abortions are allowed, of course, at this time or higher. And the whole problem with abortion is like, when are you killing a child as opposed to removing a pre-child, which is the argument. And since this child was born less than 22 weeks, I'm assuming 21 weeks, otherwise they would have said 21, that lets you know that that's a child, 21 weeks. I would maintain earlier. But one thing I want to mention, though, is a lot of people have had abortions, ladies. And, I don't bring this stuff up to beat somebody over the head who has had an abortion. There's a number of reasons why it happened, and it's irrelevant. And I'm telling you, I think this is how God works. God is like, I don't care what you did in the past. We're moving on. And so if you could, if you have anything that you've done in the past that you look at as everything from a bad choice to terrible choice, you move on from it. You get right with God and saying like, oh, that was bad. I was wrong. Forgive me, help me. And that's where the healing starts. So I'm not saying this to like sit here on some kind of self-righteous high horse, right? It is, I look back at my own family and my own kids and all that, and I could have done things differently. And I've been through divorce and, I could have done things differently, but I couldn't have done them differently at the moment. And this is the kind of thing I say to people. When you did it at the moment, unless you sat there premeditatively knew, this is wrong and I'm doing it anyway, okay? Most people do the best they can at any given time. And if they're weak, they still do the best they can. Maybe it's not good enough. Maybe it's the wrong choice. But it's best to move on from there and go forward and not try to go back and beat yourself to death. And there will be people who will guilt you to death. They will guilt you on this, and you have to just let that go. Guilt does nothing. Guilt has no purpose other than to get someone to realize that what they've done is a wrong choice. But then you got to let it go and move on from it and do what you can. You can remedy, help out remedy and whatever. But anyway, I think this to me is pretty good proof that with today's medicine, in hospitals and whatnot, that if a child is 22 weeks and they're born, they have a chance to live. And so the people should be an advocate for the child. Well, there you go. That's pretty well stated. Let me go back to this. I've been putting links up. There's a big thing going on with the people who've been on benzodiazepine, and that would be Klonopin and Valium and stuff like this. My sister was prescribed that for many years ago from a doctor, and it has done harm to her brain, which she has been working on repairing. And many have done this, and she's actually done amazingly well by how was very cautious and took like 4 years to wean off of the stuff where they'd give you 2 weeks, and then that would cause severe reaction, suicides and everything. So she's done an incredible job on it. But I forward these things when I come across it. There's people who have this brain damage. I'm going to say it in terms like a layman, as I understand it, okay? You have your GABA receptors and you have your glutamine receptors in your brain. And basically, your GABA would be peaceful, your glutamine would be like excited or fear, that kind of energy, right? So what happens, you take these medicines, what happens is medicinally, it chemically relaxes the glutamine side. It kind of like turns it off, whatever. So your GABA side starts to atrophy. You go like, well, I don't have to worry about it. And what happens when you remove the medicine? Boom, there's your glutamine side already, and the GABA can't react to it to give it that balance. So you have people who go into absolute utter terror, like just terror. The same thing could be where they actually feel pain, like you set them on fire, right? Set them on fire. Some people react where they can't stop moving. Their inside of their body is moving, and so they move their outside to try and help the feeling on the inside. Many different ways. Echinacea is the term from this. And what happens, it's so bad and gets so long and gets so terrible that people kill themselves because they can't take it anymore. And there's been a rash this year. My sister's been trying to help so many people, tell her what she did. And some of the people, here's a doctor, neurological doctor, who has got this because of the stuff that he took. He ends up killing himself. Can't take it anymore. And the problem is that the drug, the AMA can't admit to this because then it would be liable to some way. In other words, the doctors and the drug companies were making these things and they were giving them out like candy. And now you created people who are so damaged from this. And the actual return from it is so lengthy and problematic that they just have to kind of just pretend it's not there. It's like, we'll just write them off. We'll stop people from starting, we'll make laws and make it real hard to give it now. So what happens is people who have been on it for a long time are now hard to get refills, so they don't get it. Now they go off in the echinacea and they end up killing themselves, or worse, there are others. So it's a real terrible thing. And the answer is for everyone to come clean and try to help. But I think what the medical and the drug companies have done is figured, we'll just have to write off a generation because the cost of actually helping them doesn't fit in our budget. It doesn't fit in it. Oh God, it's terrible. I'm laughing. I'm laughing at the inanity of it. I think I covered the items. Now, reiterating what happened with myself is that I was in the. I just came home from work one day and it was Wednesday, and I just went to the bathroom and I had like a diarrhea and it was all blood. I won't get too gross on it. And then I ended up going to the emergency room, and it took several days of constantly doing that. Talk about freaking out. Every time I go to the bathroom now, I'm in there praying, please, God, no blood, please, God. It really, talk about post-traumatic stress. I think I had my little trauma there. And after doing several tests and actually passing out, having cold blues and all this stuff, the bleeding just stopped. And the doctor said that, 90% of the time they just stop. The other 10%, we have to go in there and take a piece of your colon out, have a colostomy bag for a couple of months, and then they reattach the colon, and then you have to go for another shit, reattach the colon, and then you're drinking, broth for the next month, all being off work, by the way. I'm looking at complete bankruptcy, not to mention absolute unpleasantness. And the whole thing that could help would be for it to stop bleeding. So, man, I was praying. And I want to thank people on Facebook. I put a little something up there, and Zeph Daniels and Patricia Daniels, and their prayer groups, they had it going. And, and hey, I don't know how prayer works. I don't know, how. But I stopped bleeding, and after 27 hours of not bleeding, they started to think that maybe I was actually done because I had stopped bleeding a couple times already. And so I came home on Monday, and the doctor wants me to not go back to work till tomorrow, which is tomorrow, basically to not lift anything heavy or basically not do anything. So I used the time to work on some music, which was pleasing. I started to redo some of the wiring in the studio, but again, I wanted to take it easy. So that's that little story. And let's hope this is the last time I'm in the in the hospital. But I'm telling you, it's both like distant, like a dream, and real at the same time. But just, I mean, the bleeding is, I had no pain. I could have got up and walked out, except I felt I was low on blood. Blood pressure went down to 60. You know, I couldn't even lift my head up. They had to get me back into bed, which was no small feat. Not exactly a small guy. And somebody in the chat room, what causes the bleeding? Well, in the colon, and I think I even mentioned this in my webpage. Yeah, let me go there. I got a picture on the webpage. If you go to the actual website, feetthefireradio.com, you can see this diverticular. What happens is, for various reasons, you got little bumps, little it like pops out on your colon. Generally, it's high pressure will kind of push them out. It's like a balloon, like a little balloon sticking out. You know, you're blowing a balloon and a little piece comes out the side. Probably came from my first hospital visit where they gave me so many antibiotics that it ruined all the flora in me. And so I had terrible cramps in December and January. I mean, ungodly cramps. And it was on the left side, which is where they said all this happened. So that's probably when it happened. Terrible cramping. And I started with Ron Dolman. We talked about this. People listen to the show. You're familiar with this. And I've had to miss some shows. Terrible cramps. So we got some various probiotics, and it helped. But apparently what had happened is it weakened one of the walls, and for whatever reason, it just, that Wednesday, just happened to start bleeding. So it literally would fill that up with blood. It was quite impressive. We put it that way. And I mentioned earlier, too, that the hospital doesn't look too well. I'm going to have to change that font in there. It's not bleeding too nice in there in that story. But in the hospital, I had these code blue, which is means unresponsive. So it can be everything from a heart attack to simply fainting. And what had happened, and my blood pressure dropped so low because I lost so much blood that standing up, my heart couldn't get blood to the brain, so I passed out, which I've never done before. And so it was quite impressive. I even did that. But the hospital, I mean, when you're a cold blue, everybody who is available just runs. If they're geographically located near the problem, they just run there, right? So when I came to and they were sitting me up talking to me, I looked out in the room and there's like 20 people standing there, like all ready to go. You know, you had doctors who were available, who were running in the room, getting ready for intervention and everything like that. And when they determined what happened, then they called off the code blue, and they knocked it down. You know, so I was again very touched really by the level of commitment of these people. And I guess you're supposed to do that, but I'm just not used to that in my daily life, of people that committed to an individual who they don't know. You know, it's not like they're getting paid $1 trillion. I mean, a lot of these people are just hospital workers who showed up to help, you know, not fancy doctors or whatever. Somebody's asking, this is common. Well, the diverticular disease is not uncommon, especially as you get older, because if you have constipation and any kind of cramping and pushing, you could, kind of blow out a bubble, let's say, on the side of your colon. So it's not uncommon. What is uncommon is the bleeding. It's on the one side. It's an infection where it will have an infection inside there, will fester, and it'll actually break, and it'll break either into the colon, but most likely it breaks outside the colon, and then it starts dumping fecal material into your gut, which you could die within minutes. Well, that's the worst case. On the other end of the spectrum, the other worst case is bleeding, where it could bleed externally or internally, until you die or intervention. So no, they're not. That's not common. The diverticular disease is not uncommon, and it gets more common. Let's say it's still uncommon, but it gets more common when you get older. So the doctors told me that there's really no diet per se. They used to say don't eat popcorn and don't eat pumpkin seeds because the little seeds can get stuck in there. And the doctor said that in recent studies it shows it's not the case. So, I could live without popcorn. It's fine with me. But in my case, because the bleeding probably happened because of pressure, the surgeon who was on call but never had to be used suggested that I have, fiber, high fiber. You want to have a loose stool. You don't ever want to have constipation. Because since I had blood already, you don't know if the same area could re-bleed again, a different area could bleed again. So I asked him, I said, well, do I have to watch? I mean, what? Do I have to watch out for this? And he's like, it could never bleed again. It could bleed again. It could bleed somewhere else. Don't know. It's like, so anybody at any time could be in a position with having this diverticular pockets and bleed or get infection at any time. And it's like, oh, well, is it going to happen? I don't know. So I guess the moral of the story is make sure you have a lot of fiber. Because I'm doing that for sure. So that's my story for the last week. And no, within a year, I've been in the hospital twice. Quite expensive. And I don't know if 3 strikes and you're out, I think, pal. So someday if you come to the show and there isn't one, I guess that 3rd strike happened. I still might be alive, but I still can't. But anyway, thanks for those who did pray and whatnot. I got some comments through Facebook. I couldn't really do much in the hospital. I had my phone with. I don't have the Facebook app or nothing. I wouldn't put that on my phone, but I went through the web page. I figured that was probably the best I could do. So, yeah, it was quite unnerving. With that, I will say I'm happy to still be here. I mean, last week, I think the last show I did, my computer malfunctioned too. So with the time I was home recuperating, I was able to, here we are with the backdrop and everything. I was able to redo that with the computer. Though I'm going to have to look into this memory issue because I do have a hell of a lot of memory. The only thing I could say, maybe I didn't reboot. So yes, I'm just a cat with 9 lives. Well, got a couple peeled off there. I peeled a couple off the top, and I don't, without being dramatic here. I mean, I don't have a problem with dying per se. I'm not thrilled about the process. All right. But, there's a part of me that's like not finished yet type feeling to it, So it's like when I was in there thinking like, well, what if I die? Especially when you pass out. Let me tell you, watch TV and you see these guys going to pass out, and they're reaching to hit this. They got to hit this lever or the whole ship will blow up and they're going to pass out and they work over and hit the lever. That's a bunch of baloney. It was like, boom. I started to get dizzy, lightheaded. I started seeing like a checkerboard with various colors. You see me? It got there, and I was like, I was out. I mean, I was sitting there, and next thing you know, I'm laying on the ground going, oh, man. There's no like, oh, wait a minute. I'll reach. I'll get over here, and I'll sit down. It's like, boom, you drop like a rag doll. So, but anyway, well, that's visible. He was in the hospital. I didn't actually find out what happened to him. He wrote something on his blog, I think. But he put together a message for last week, which I didn't do a show, obviously. So I'm going to play it now, and we'll watch it. I didn't watch it either. And we'll listen together. It might have say something about what happened to him. So, all righty, let's go. Of course. Oops. All right, we're going to do it, honestly, really. Here we go.
Hello! Greetings, my friends. Welcome to Dog Poet transmitting and to the Saucer Pod. Greetings from the Arcturian Brotherhood and greetings from the Sirius Cluster. Welcome, my friends. Usually what am I trying to say? I'll have some kind of notes or an idea of what I'm going to say, but today there's no such thing. I had a rather serious event occur for me, and I'm just going to talk off the top of my head what there is left of it. And that was last Friday. I was in terrible, terrible pain from my gallbladder. And I went into this hospital here that is owned by the people that I think are making war on Syria. The British are doing that and pretending with the white helmets that something's actually happened there because they hate Assad, but really it's Israel wants to take Syria. Okay, that's basically what it is. Anybody that believes differently is a fool or culpable. And anyway, I was in there Friday and I can't even remember what happened, but for some reason, of course, I came back the next Saturday night and I was in terrible pain. And then they said they're going to have to admit me. But meanwhile, they were cruel and nasty, the like of which I have hardly ever seen. They were vicious and sociopathic. The only reason they weren't psychopathic is I got out of there alive, which I'm pretty amazed at. And oh well. So then I wasn't able to be operated on until a Monday in the afternoon, and that was pretty bad. And then I got out of there. They threw me out, I guess. They weren't very nice about anything. And they threw me out and made me leave the next day. And it was horrific. They wouldn't really give me any pain medication. And so it really hurt. And then what little pain medication they gave me, which is very weak, was supposed to last until this last Saturday or yesterday. And it didn't really. And it was also horrific. And I don't really know what to tell you. It was just a terrible experience for me. And I tried to somehow work my way around it. And I was unable to do this. And the whole time while this was going on, I could only think about my friends, my really dear friends, of which thankfully I've got quite a few, like my friend William Crowell and a few others who are just sweet and beautiful people. And then my lovely Indian friends from India, my friend Roy, and my friend Suluk, and then my friend Rakib, who is from Bangladesh, as well as his wife. They're all just the most remarkable people. They're neat as a pin. They're elegant. They're incredibly well educated. And I really don't quite know what to say about them, except that I love them dearly and to the limits of my power. And they've proven to be just remarkable people. And I hardly really know much more to say about them than just how incredible they are. It's been, I keep trying to think of something to say, and I'm incapable of doing this, except to say that basically my heart is broken, and I am just caught in a turmoil for which I have no solutions and no answers. And, well, it's just been a terrible sequence of events, heartbreaking, really. And maybe I don't know how necessary it is for me to say these things, but what I can tell you is that it's been an experience that I wish were other than it was. And has been heartbreaking. And God, I really wish I knew what to say. And the fact is, I don't. And it's just left me in a sense, a state of despair, a state of personal loss. And good God Almighty, I wish I knew what to say to you, all of you who are just so wonderful friends to me, such beautiful, wonderful friends. And it just leaves me not knowing how to express myself, not knowing how to, yeah, well, that's where it leaves me, pretty much. I love the Lord God Almighty with all my heart. I love God beyond my capacity to define or express it. It just leaves me in a state of not knowing what to say, and that's just where I find myself, at a loss once again for knowing what to say. Oh well, I honestly wish I knew how better to express myself in regard to this, and I find myself incapable of doing that. And I am just oh so very grateful to those of you who have been so kind to me. Heartbreaking, just heartbreaking. And I don't know what to, honestly, my friends, I don't know what to say, but I am infinitely grateful to have had such wonderful support from so many of you. You have really made it possible for me to experience things beyond my capacity to express in any way. My gratitude, please forgive me for this. I honestly do not know, my friends, what I can say. That's where it pretty much leaves me. Yeah. I'm looking at you right now, trying to express in as much as it is possible for me, just how profound this is all, what it has been for me. And this is where I find myself caught in a situation where I find myself incapable of expressing pretty much anything, my friends. I sincerely, really sincerely want to thank all of you for having been so kind and making it so possible for me to experience that which I find myself incapable of. What can I tell you? Once again, I want to say how profoundly grateful I am for the friendship that so many of you have made possible for me to experience. And my gratitude, as I have said before, is just utterly profound. And I wish I were capable somehow of making it yeah, well, that's where I'm at, my friends. So here's where I find myself. It's 9 minutes and a half, you know, of so much time that it has all come to for me, and I don't know what to tell you. Thank you so much, my friends, for your kindness to me. Thank you so very, very, very much. And I wish I were in a position to express somehow the gratitude that I feel. I am just not able really to do that. And it hurts, you know. I guess some of you know and some of you don't. And that's where it leaves me. And as I have already said before, it just really, really, really hurts. And I am just filled with the gratitude that just wells up in my heart, and I'm not able to take it any further than that. I owe you all so very, very much for the profound kindnesses that you have shown me. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much what it comes to. And God bless you one and all for having been so gracious and profoundly kind to me. That's as much as I know how to express. Okay, my friends, that just pretty much sums up all I find myself able to make clear to you. And I just once again really, really want to thank you. So this is pretty much all I can say. And I want to thank you for the kindnesses that you have made it possible for me to experience. And just once again, thank you very, very, very much. God bless you, one and all. And I guess that's pretty much all there is. And God bless you, one and all. And I am now going to leave. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you again and again and again and again and again.